This is the story of the Sugar King, Claus Spreckles. He was a German-born American industrialist in California and Hawaii during the Kingdom and Republican periods of the island's history. He founded or was involved in several enterprises, most notably the company that bears his name, Spreckles Sugar Company. Spreckles was born in Lamstedt, in the Kingdom of Hanover, a constituent kingdom of the German Confederation. Spreckles was the eldest of 6 children of the farmer John Diederich Spreckles and his wife Jesch Bach, a family that had occupied a homestead in Lamstedt for many generations. He grew up in Lamstedt and attended elementary school. After the bad harvests of 1845 and 1846, the resulting inflation and hunger crisis reached its peak in 1847. Spreckles emigrated to the United States in 1848 at the age of 19 to start a new life. With only one German thaler in his pocket, which upon arrival in the U.S., he exchanged for 75 cents, equivalent to about $30 in 2023 dollars. Spreckles settled in Charleston, South Carolina, working as a grocery clerk, taking over the grocery after a year and a half by buying it on credit from the retiring shop owner. In 1852, he married his childhood sweetheart, Anna Christina Mangels, who had immigrated to New York City with her brother 3 years earlier. They had 13 children, 5 of whom lived to maturity: sons John, Diederich, Adolf, Bernard, Claus, August, Rudolph, and daughter, Emma Claudina, who married Watson Ferris Hutton. The remaining children died in childhood, in several cases, within a few months of each other, either from diphtheria or from other unspecified pandemic diseases, possibly cholera. In 1854, Claus and his family left Charleston for New York City, where he operated a grocery with his brother-in-law, Claus Mangels. Then, in 1855, he was visited by his younger brother Bernhard, who operated a grocery store in San Francisco and was en route back to their hometown of Lamstedt to marry. Bernhard regaled Claus with stories about the city and its booming post-gold rush economy. Already disliking New York City and sensing an opportunity, Spreckles soon sold his share of the grocery business there to his brother-in-law and bought out Bernhard's San Francisco grocery, relocating there with his family in 1856. After about a year of operating a successful grocery in San Francisco, he again grew restless with a lack of growth opportunity in that line of business. Noting the generally poor quality of San Francisco quick-brewed beer of that time, he saw brewing as an industry with strong growth potential. He partnered again with Claus Mangels and with a younger brother, Peter Spreckles, to start a brewery and sold off his grocery business soon after. Spreckles and his partners opened the Albany Brewery on Everett Street near 4th Street, now Yerba Buena Gardens, in 1857, and soon afterward opened a saloon, the Albany Malt House, across the street. The brewery's first product was a cream ale, but later added a German-style lager and a steam beer, which, by some accounts, introduced steam beer to California. Brewing proved a sometimes difficult line of work. Beer making required constant monitoring for temperature, something that might be ignored when a shift change happened, requiring Spreckles to come in late at night and monitor the process himself. He later stated that he often slept no more than 4 hours per day for months on end. The brewery and saloon were successful and became the second largest brewery in San Francisco, but never managed to surpass competitor John Whelan's Philadelphia Brewery for the top position. Spreckles himself never made more than a modest income after splitting the earnings with his partners. Spreckles' saloon was located in the same area as George Gordon's San Francisco and Pacific Sugar Refinery and frequented by some of its workmen. Spreckles had overheard a conversation between these workmen discussing the wastefulness of the sugar refining process at their factory, which allowed large amounts of sugar liquor to overflow and run into the sewers. Spreckles sensed that if the refinery could still turn a profit while wasting so much of its product, then the profit potential in sugar must be enormous. An additional factor was the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861, which cut off the North from Southern sugar supplies, causing demand to outstrip supply. In 1863, Spreckles decided to go into the sugar refining business, leaving management of the brewery in the hands of his partners. In order to familiarize himself with the process of sugar refining, he relocated to New York City, then the center of the American sugar industry for several months, taking an entry-level night shift job at the Charles Durant Sugar Refinery and learning all aspects of the process. During the day, he toured other sugar refineries, asking detailed questions about their process. Spreckles had his eldest son John accompany him on this extended trip and included him on factory tours so that he would learn the business as well. While in New York City, Spreckles took advantage of the opportunity to purchase a full set of sugar refining equipment from the recently bankrupted United States refinery, having it shipped around Cape Horn to San Francisco. In 1864, Spreckles opened the Bay Sugar Refining Company, the first of a series of sugar refining enterprises, establishing a factory at Union and Battery Streets near the San Francisco waterfront. Claus Spreckles would again partner with Claus Mangels and Peter Spreckles, but also brought in financiers Hermann Mies and Louis Meyer as partners. At the same time, he finally sold off his remaining shares of the Albany Brewery, leaving that business in the hands of Mangels and Peter Spreckles. In a letter to a colleague, George Gordon wrote, "I am greatly annoyed at the action of that fool, Spreckles, in building another sugar refinery for which there is no room." However, the new company expanded rapidly and, using price war tactics, grew its market share of sugar in California at the expense of Gordon's San Francisco and Pacific Company. In 1865, Spreckles told his partners that he wanted a substantial amount of the company's profits reinvested in doubling the size of the refinery. The partners balked at this plan, preferring their existing comfortable dividends over the immediate loss of income and risk involved in expansion. Claus then quit the company, selling controlling shares to Mies and Meyer, later stating that he preferred to start afresh rather than being hampered by the conservatism of frightened little men. Soon after selling his refinery, Spreckles and his family left for an extended stay in Germany. He set about learning the details of the specialized processes of sugar beet agriculture and refining, which were relatively little known in the United States, even taking a workman's position in a beet sugar refinery in Magdeburg for several months. He returned to California in early 1867 with a supply of sugar beet seeds that he had brought back from Germany. He publicized sugar beet growing to farmers around the Central Valley, promising great profits, but was unable to find growers due to the highly labor-intensive nature of the sugar beet growing process. He instead set about returning to the cane sugar refining business. Spreckles opened the California Sugar Refinery, located at 8th and Brannan Streets in San Francisco, in April 1867. He again partnered with Peter Spreckles and Claus Mangels and brought in new partners Frederick Hageman and Henry Horstman. However, unlike his previous enterprises, he maintained full controlling interest in the new company. The new refinery benefited from new technologies, including exclusive patents by Spreckles. He introduced granulated sugar and sugar cubes, which had been recently developed in Europe, to the American market. Before these products were introduced, sugar was sold in the form of hard sugar loaves that the consumer had to break up using special tools or pay extra for a grocer to do it. Spreckles' technological innovations also vastly increased his product output, producing as much sugar in one day as his previous refinery had produced in 3 weeks. With these new products and production capacity, his new company would begin to outpace his competitors, the Bay Sugar Refinery, now in the hands of his former partners and George Gordon's San Francisco and Pacific Sugar Refinery. This business achievement came at a marked personal cost, however. In 1869, overwork and stress had led to severe burnout and a mental breakdown characterized by memory loss and other physical and mental symptoms. His doctors advised him to withdraw from all business activity. Spreckles left management of the California Sugar Refinery in the hands of his partners and spent the next 18 months over 1869 and 1870 traveling with his family in Europe. This trip included a course of hydrotherapy at the spa town of Carlsbad, Bohemia. He returned to San Francisco in early 1871 with his health and vigor fully restored. Spreckles faced additional competition from 1870 to 1873 when Mr. Dyer operated the California Beet Sugar Company, the first successful sugar beet refinery in the United States, across the San Francisco Bay in Alvarado, California. Nevertheless, by 1874, Spreckles' company was claiming to be the largest sugar refinery in California, and by 1880, He had a near monopoly on sugar production in California. Claus Spreckles was hailed in the Hawaiian and California press as the Sugar King. With a steady supply of raw sugar coming from his Hawaiian operations, Spreckles announced that he would be relocating and expanding his refinery. The company purchased 6 blocks of land in the Potrero Point area in an industrial part of San Francisco several miles south of downtown. The location was strategically located near to where wharf facilities could be built along San Francisco Bay and also near to the Southern Pacific Railroad lines. The enormous 12-story factory building was completed and began operations in 1881. Spreckles also developed housing and hotel space for over 200 workers, and the new neighborhood at Potrero Point would become the core of the area later, known as Dogpatch. Facing competition from the California Beet Sugar Company in the early 1870s, Spreckles began shopping for land outside of San Francisco, where he could further experiment with sugar beet cultivation. In 1872, Rafael de Jesus Castro and his wife Maria Soledad Cota de Castro, the owners of a large portion of the former Mexican land Grant Rancho Aptos, were undergoing a divorce and needed to liquidate their community property. Learning that the land was for sale, Spreckles quickly made an offer to buy out their property in cash, and soon after bought additional tracts from the Castro sons, who had been deeded other portions of Rancho Aptos. In all, Spreckles purchased over 550 acres for his estate. In addition to planting sugar beets on a portion of the acreage, he also decided to build a second home on the ranch, allowing the Spreckles family a retreat away from San Francisco. He would go on to build an extensive ranch complex and, later, a large resort hotel. Spreckles was one of the original investors in the Santa Cruz Railroad, which began operation in 1875 and passed through his land on its run between Santa Cruz and Pajaro, where it connected with the Southern Pacific Railroad line. On the Aptos Ranch, Spreckles began to experiment with growing sugar beets. He induced others in the Santa Cruz County to plant sugar beets as well. While sugar beet cultivation would prove economically unfeasible in the area around Aptos and Soquel, it would be more successful further south in the Pajaro Valley, an area that would become important in Spreckles' sugar empire a decade later. Spreckles' interest in Hawaii's sugar industry began in 1876. Prior to that time, Spreckles had opposed the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875, which increased the Kingdom of Hawaii's access to the American sugar market because he feared that the low tariffs on Hawaiian sugar would hurt his business. However, Spreckles eventually decided to establish his own plantations in Hawaii and traveled there 1 year later. Spreckles became friends with Walter Gibson, advisor to King Kalakaua. Together, they made arrangements where Spreckles would lend the king money and in return, Gibson and he would increase the Spreckles land holdings and water rights. In 1878, Spreckles founded Sprecklesville, a company town along the northern shore of Maui. To do so, he purchased and leased 40,000 acres of land. That same year, Spreckles incorporated the Hawaiian Commercial Company with Hermann Schussler, a San Francisco area engineer best known for overseeing construction of the Crystal Springs Reservoir. In 1882, the company was reincorporated as the Hawaiian Commercial and Sugar Company. By 1892, Sprecklesville was the largest sugarcane plantation in the world and employed thousands of immigrant farm laborers from Japan, Korea, China, and other countries. In 1880, he purchased the Pacific Commercial Advertiser and became a newspaper publisher. In 1881, he partnered with British Hawaiian planter William Irwin to form a company to handle the Spreckles family interests in Hawaii. Spreckles had also considered George McFarlane, aide to King Kalakaua, as a potential associate, but ultimately opted for Irwin. Variations of Irwin's name would be used for other partnership companies with Spreckles. The Oceanic Steamship Company and J.D. Spreckles and Brothers, sons of Claus, were wholly owned subsidiaries of the Irwin and Company Limited Holding Company. Among numerous ships built by them was the William Irwin Barkentine in 1881. Spreckles and Company was a holding company, also known as the Spreckles Bank. Incorporated by Irwin, former California Governor Frederick Lowe, and Spreckles, on January 1, 1884, its purpose was to circulate the Kalakaua coinage in Hawaii and to float loans to the monarchy and government officials. Dissolved by November 1st, the partners then funneled their banking activities through William Irwin and Company. The only other bank in Hawaii was Bishop and Company, but proliferation of sugar money necessitated that other banks be allowed incorporation. Towards that end, the legislature passed what became known as the Banking Act of 1884, signed into law by Kalakaua on August 11th. Spreckles fell out of Kalakaua's favor in 1886. Both the king and Gibson were in debt to Spreckles due to gambling and tired of his demands. Kalakaua was able to secure a loan from a London creditor and paid off his debt to Spreckles, freeing him of the latter's influence. Nevertheless, Spreckles was a practical royalist who believed the monarchy's labor importation policies benefited the sugar industry. After the overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdom, Spreckles found himself at odds over the issue with other planters and supported Liliuokalani's return to the throne. If Hawaii were annexed, the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act would likely apply to the islands and cut deeply into the plantation labor supply. In 1893, following a bitter lawsuit that pitted him against his two youngest sons, Gus and Rudolph, and Claus Spreckles handed off his Hawaii properties and businesses to William Irwin and his two eldest sons, John and Adolph, with the intention of focusing his resources on his beet sugar business in California. Viewed as an enemy of the newly established Provisional Government of Hawaii, on July 9, 1893, Spreckles found a death threat graffitied on his house and went into self-exile from Hawaii on July 19. He left on the SS Australia, vowing to return to seagrass growing in the streets of Honolulu. Spreckles returned only once to Hawaii, in 1905. Infighting between his sons and their waning interests in their Hawaiian businesses led to the dissolution of the Spreckles family businesses over the following decades and their takeover by Hawaii's emerging Big Five sugar companies. Following a brief takeover by Gus and Rudolph, the Hawaiian Commercial and Sugar Company and Sprecklesville were taken over by Alexander and Baldwin in 1898, and the remaining Irwin and Spreckles businesses merged into C. Brewer and Company in 1909. Sensing that his influence in Hawaii was slipping, Spreckles renewed his interest in sugar beet cultivation in California. In 1888, Spreckles established the Western Beet Sugar Company in Watsonville, which was at that time the largest beet sugar factory in the United States. By 1890, his main growing operations had shifted to the Salinas Valley, so he built the 42-mile narrow-gauge Pajaro Valley Consolidated Railroad to ship his sugar beets from the fields near Salinas to Watsonville. In 1899, Spreckles opened an even larger factory closer to the main sugar beet fields. He named the new enterprise Spreckles Sugar Company. Spreckles, California, a planned company town, was built nearby, with the first houses designed by noted architect W. H. Weeks, who also designed the factory. Unlike typical company towns, workers were not required to live there and businesses were independently owned rather than company stores. In the 1890s, Spreckles helped found the National Sugar Trust and renamed his San Francisco property the Western Sugar Refinery, and continued to increase his control over the Hawaiian sugar trade. This control over the industry was irksome to Hawaiian planters not directly affiliated with Spreckles and his associates. At the end of the 1890s, they attempted to break free. In 1905, the planters established a cooperative refinery in Crockett, California, the California and Hawaiian Sugar Company, C&H. The Spreckles' dominance in sugar was broken, but the Western Sugar Refinery continued operation in San Francisco until 1951. Spreckles was the president of the San Francisco and San Joaquin Valley Railroad, which was founded in 1895 and sold to the Santa Fe Railway in 1900. The railroad built a line that competed with the Southern Pacific through the San Joaquin Valley between Richmond and Bakersfield. The railroad was welcome competition for shippers who were strangled by Southern Pacific's monopoly on shipping rates in the valley. Today, this route is BNSF's main route to Northern California. Spreckles had an often contentious relationship with other powerful business figures and interests, both in the United States and in the Kingdom of Hawaii. This was reflected in frequent negative publicity for Spreckles, particularly in the often yellow press that characterized much of American journalism of that era. One such rivalry would grow into a family enmity between Claus Spreckles and his sons and Charles and M.H. DeYoung, owners of the San Francisco Chronicle, culminating in the attempted assassination of M.H. DeYoung by Adolph Spreckles in 1884. Allegations by the Chronicle and other critics included the claim that he practiced slavery on his Hawaiian plantations, that he acted as a pimp for King Kalakaua, and that he had defrauded stockholders in his company. Like other owners of sugar plantations in Hawaii prior to American annexation, Spreckles employed laborers on the contract labor system, a system having some features of indentured servitude, in which an immigrant laborer contracted to work for a single employer for a set period, typically 3 to 5 years, for a low wage as repayment for the cost of passage to Hawaii. Spreckles was a strong advocate for continuation of this system, arguing that sugar could not be produced economically without a reliable supply of cheap labor. This led him to oppose the annexation of Hawaii by the United States, something that was supported by many powerful Americans in Hawaii, as the use of contract labor was illegal in the United States under the 1885 Alien Contract Labor Law and other laws. In the 1880s, the Chronicle began running articles alleging that the laborers on Spreckles' plantations were effectively enslaved, that his plantations engaged in unacceptable labor practices, and that the living conditions of the laborers were inhumane, with some of this coverage getting attention in the larger national press. The majority of San Francisco newspapers of the era, however, did not endorse the Chronicle's reporting on the issue, claiming that the labor conditions on Spreckles' plantations were acceptable and, in fact, much better than those on sugar plantations in the Caribbean, a position later supported by independent investigations by the Portuguese and Norwegian governments. Negative publicity about Spreckles' Hawaiian operations continued to follow him even after the divestment of his Hawaiian operations in 1893. In 1900, an incident took place in which 114 Puerto Rican migrant laborers were transported to Hawaii under coercive and inhumane conditions. News of the plight of these laborers as they were being transported to California for shipment to Hawaii became a cause célèbre in the American press, particularly in San Francisco. The laborers were recruited and trafficked by labor agents who, according to most accounts, were hired by the Hawaiian Sugar Planters Association, though some stories linked the agents to Claus Spreckles. John D. Spreckles issued a statement via his newspaper, the San Francisco Call, claiming that neither he nor Claus Spreckles had anything to do with the recruitment of these laborers. Spreckles began suffering from diabetes in his old age, and in 1898, he collapsed from severe complications of diabetes. In late 1903, he suffered from a series of strokes that temporarily left him unable to speak. In December 1908, Claus Spreckles developed a common cold, which in his weakened condition gave way to pneumonia, and he died in his San Francisco home on December 26, 1908. He is interred in the Spreckles Mausoleum at Cypress Lawn Memorial Park in Calma. His second son, Adolph, and his daughter-in-law, Alma de Bretteville Spreckles, were later interred there after their deaths. In 1899, Spreckles gave the city of San Francisco a classical-style outdoor music structure, known as the bandshell, to frame one end of the music concourse in Golden Gate Park. The official name of the structure is the Spreckles Temple of Music. Several place names in Aptos and Rio Del Mar, California are named for Claus Spreckles or for parts of his once extensive estate. Claus Court, which is a cul-de-sac running off of Spreckles Drive, is the former site of his Aptos Hotel. Polo Grounds Park was once Spreckles Polo Field, while the Deer Park area, now a small shopping center, was once the estate's hunting preserve. A number of streets elsewhere also take their name from Claus Spreckles or Spreckles Sugar Company. In addition to the aforementioned streets in Aptos named for him, there are streets and roads bearing his name in downtown Honolulu and in or near the California cities of Spreckles, King City, and Manteca. A historic Spreckles Sugar Company farmhouse built in 1898 sits on the grounds of the Monterey County Agricultural and Rural Life Museum in King City, having been moved there in 1980 from the company's Ranch No. 1 near the town of Spreckles. I hope you enjoyed this long but detailed story about the Sugar King, Claus Spreckles. Extra bonus points if you know how many times I said Spreckles in this video. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe to this channel for more of Northern California's amazing history. And as always, happy trails!